Hi, I'm Dr. Qureshi, aka the Mind Doc, and welcome to a new, hopefully useful video. For those of you who are new to the channel, I am a registered psychiatrist here in the United Kingdom. So, what a year it's been, guys. Over a year now, in fact. The COVID pandemic has affected people in a myriad of different ways. It's affected physical health, mental health, social circumstances. With regards to mental health, there's been a multitude of different effects. And for clarity of thinking, I always like to divide things up in my mind to make it easier to process. And in this context, there's been direct effects on mental health and indirect effects. For those who have directly suffered with COVID, there's been documented evidence of increased rates in things like depressive disorders, anxiety disorders, PTSD, and features such as insomnia. Indirectly, we've been concerned about ourselves, we've been concerned about the physical health of our loved ones, particularly elderly relatives. We've tragically lost family members. People have lost jobs, they've lost their income, they've got into debt. I've seen this a lot in my patients. There's been relationship strains as well. There's been travel bans, so we've not been able to go on holiday and relax. But from what I've seen, one of the toughest themes has been that of uncertainty. We as human beings like to always be in control, but during the course of events over the last year or so, things have been spiraling out of control for a lot of people. Uncertainty is a key theme in anxiety disorders. What will happen in that situation? What if I make a fool of myself? What if they don't love me? What if they leave me? The first thing I would say on that is try to bring back some certainty to your day. In other words, have a daily routine. And often it's really beneficial to write this down. One tip is to include activities that you enjoy within your routine so that your day is not overly tedious. But another tip is to try and get your day off to a really good start. And that means don't go on your phone immediately as soon as you wake up, which I think a lot of people have a tendency to do. It's a bit like an addiction. When it comes to alcohol, we often ask people, what's the first thing you do in the morning? And they say, I drink alcohol, I need it as an eye opener. But these days, one of the biggest addictions is phones, and we wake up and immediately need our phones, and that's problematic. But that's probably a topic for another day. You see, all of these successful people who really emphasize waking up early and having a good morning routine and getting the day off to a good start. Why don't we get up and have a good morning routine? Why don't we get washed, make our bed, get dressed in nice clothes, have a good breakfast? The amount of times that I hear people say that they spend all day in their pajamas and by the end of the day, they're not feeling very good about themselves. Here's an idea. Why don't you try and get ready in the mornings? You'll feel better about yourself. Another point that I want to make about anxiety and stress is that we're bound to get it. That's life. We have to accept it. We're born crying, right? We're not born smiling. And I think there's some inherent symbolism to that. Without doubt, life is a series of stresses. And one of my main motivations in life is to try and navigate those stresses in a way that's dignified and trying to develop myself through that process of facing up to my stresses head on. Don't live in denial about these difficulties in your life. And what's worse, don't play the victim card. Why me? That question will leave you feeling very powerless. If you feel powerless, you give up, and you can only lose if you give up. You can't lose if you're still fighting. A little bit of anxiety and stress is good for us, right? It helps us meet deadlines, it helps us prepare for presentations or examinations, it helps us tidy up the house before guests arrive. But if that anxiety is too much or too little, then problems can arise. Think about it in COVID terms. If you had too little anxiety about that, then you'd just be going out and not adhering to lockdown rules, and you'd end up getting the virus and potentially dying. But I've seen patients firsthand at the opposite end of the spectrum, taking things to an extreme, not even interacting with their own family for fear of catching COVID, not going out for exercise, leaving their jobs. As with many things in life, you need to try and find a middle ground when it comes to stress and anxiety. Another piece of advice to try and help your anxiety levels, try and work on your relationships, try and work on building and maintaining them. Strangely, the lockdowns brought some people closer together. I, for one, for example, am speaking a bit more regularly to family. And also, I think the quality of the interactions has the potential to improve as well, because you're dealing with people on a more one-to-one basis. Whereas before the virus, when we were meeting in larger groups with family or friends, the depth of that interaction is watered down to some degree. Try and let go of grudges, mend broken relationships. It can prove really therapeutic, and lockdown might serve as the perfect time to do this because nobody's expecting you to go and visit these people. Rather, you can start in small steps, just maybe sending a text message or a letter or making a phone call. I know these things are really difficult, but we can't avoid difficult situations altogether. And actually, avoidance is one of the telltale signs of underlying anxiety. I see it all the time, and actually, in society, it's getting easier to avoid things. We can go onto social media and get a false sense of social belonging as a result of that. We can order things online at the click of a button. Sometimes doing ostensibly easy tasks, such as groceries, can prove difficult, and you might wonder, how am I going to find parking? And it's going to be a mission finding different things within the store, and then I have to go to the checkout and pack all of the groceries, and there's going to be people waiting in the queue behind me, and there's going to be a lot of pressure, and your mind can run away with you. But actually, if you avoid that situation altogether, it's just going to be harder for you. And you'll realize if you face up to that challenge that you're stronger than you think. In life, in order to develop and overcome our anxieties, we need to push ourselves. And I do this in clinical practice day in, day out. If I encounter a patient that's struggling with a specific phobia, for example, or a situation that provokes anxiety within them, I have to gently push them in order for them to face up to that anxiety. But you do that in controlled chunks. So for instance, if they've got a phobia of elevators, I may first talk to them about elevators, and that will provoke anxiety within them. But over time, the more we talk about it, the more that anxiety will diminish. And once they've mastered their anxiety levels associated with that, then we can work on the next step. Then you take them to see an elevator, then you might step inside the elevator with them, then they might go in on their own, then the elevator starts moving. So you have to do it in controlled amounts and gradually withdraw supports. And the individual discovers that they're able to overcome that anxiety. There's a term that a Russian psychologist named Vygotsky came up with called the zone of proximal development. And this is kind of a zone or area in between where we are at the moment and where we want to go. It's a zone of potential. And I'll give you a good example of this. When it comes to children, we do this without even realizing. When they're developing their language skills, we use language at a slightly higher level than what they already know and understand. And using this method, they sequentially develop their language skills and hone it in. Whereas if we were to use very complicated language for a newborn baby, clearly they would not develop. Another example is for people who go to the gym. If they're bench pressing 40 kilograms for the rest of their lives, they'll develop their chest muscles up to a certain point, but they won't develop after that. But actually, the individual needs to push themselves to higher weights, and they'll find that their muscles strengthen. Another piece of advice that may help you feel better during the pandemic and beyond is to try and provide help and support for other people. You can perhaps give a family member a call and check up on how they're doing. You could go over to your elderly neighbour's house and offer to get some groceries for them. You'll be surprised just how good it can make an individual feel if they provide positive emotion for another person. And strong emotions can really have a chain reaction effect. So if you think about the comedian within your family or your circle of friends, as soon as they enter the room, everyone's spirits lift. But on the flip side, when it comes to strong negative emotions, they can also be infectious. So if you think about someone within your family who might be having difficulties within their marriage or relationship, or say somebody is stressed out about an exam within your household, then it has a knock-on effect on the whole of the family. But the point here is that if you show positive emotion, it can really have beneficial effects on the people that you interact with. And as a result of that, it can make you feel better as well. If you've been struggling during the pandemic, which we all have in varying ways, try mixing things up. Spend more time with your immediate family, obviously bearing in mind lockdown rules. Try finding a new hobby. How about developing new skills, perhaps by enrolling on a new course? If you're in a rut, it's difficult, but it's nonsensical to keep doing the same things and expect improvement. When I was at school in maths class, we used to get marks for our working out for a particular mathematical equation. And if we got to the wrong answer, we wouldn't then try and do the same working out. We'd try different things. And similarly in life, if you're struggling, you need to try different things. As an aside to that point, it's useful to find an acceptable outlet for your stress, whether that be exercise or artwork or cleaning. I know the pandemic's not been easy and it's been an unprecedented struggle for everyone, but hopefully some of the advice that I've given within this video may help you to some degree, and it won't work for everyone. It depends on the individual, but this is some of the stuff that has helped people that I've worked with and helped myself. If you found the video useful, please give a thumbs up down below and please subscribe to my channel. Until next time.